Shalom, everybody, and here we are starting today the study of Parashat Toldot, Genesis chapter 25, verse 19, Vele Toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. And we have a parasha that if you read the simple reading, it really makes nonsense. Of course, it looks like talking gossip about a dysfunctional family, and I'll expand. Here we have the birth of Esau and Jacob. They hate each other. They fight against each other already from the beginning, which means even when they are in the womb before being born, they're still fighting. They're already fighting with each other. And now, so we know we are the two. They represent two great forces. And now we hear that Rivka loves the young one, Jacob, and Isaac loves the big one, Esau. And we think it's like people of that greatness, they have the same disease as so many dysfunctional families when the mother loves one brother and the father is behind another brother and they fight for the inheritance that is represented in this story as the birthright and the blessing. So if you look at the shallow level, it looks really not, it doesn't, you can't take it in. However, if you read it carefully, you realize there are many secrets hidden, encoded inside this parasha, and we'll try to unencode them. So, first of all, the first idea that we understand is there is something encoded. Here we have Isaac, that he tells his son Esau that he's going to be the one who's getting the blessings. Okay. Now the beginning of the story about the two brothers, we hear that Esau goes for the hunting. He comes back. He's really hungry. He's dying out of hunger, and Jacob says to him, I just cooked a lentil soup. You want to eat? Sell your birthright. Okay, so Esau sell his birthright. That sounds horrible. A brother comes home. I don't want to go into it, but it sounds horrible. Okay, when when we hear that Isaac wants to give the blessing to Esau, Jacob could say, I have the birthright. Esau sold it to me. He doesn't say that. Why? Then we have another story that Rivka is convincing Jacob to steal the birthright. And he's disguising as Esau, cheating his father, impersonating himself as Esau, and Isaac is giving Jacob the blessings. And the worst thing is when Esau is coming home and he realizes that his blessing has been stolen, he cries so much. He's telling his father, my brother stole the blessings. And what's the answer of Isaac? He's kind of happy about it. Good for him. He's going to be blessed. And now Isaac is reluctant about giving another blessing to Esau, and Esau has to cry bitterly to convince Isaac to give him a blessing too. And the worst of them all, like the weirdest of them all, will go to the end of the Parashah, and in that we have a proof that Isaac never thought that Esau should get the birthright. How do we know? When Rivka talks to Isaac, and she says to him, I don't want Jacob to marry the locals like Esau did. I don't want it to happen. I'll be better dead for that to happen. Send him to my brother, to Haran, to marry one of his daughters. Then, before he leaves, Jacob gets another blessing, a second blessing from Isaac. Isaac would say, okay, you got the birthright, you got the blessing. No, he gives him the birthright and the blessing. Now that he knows it's Jacob, and the blessing is like this. If you read Genesis 28, verse 1, ויקרא יצחק אל יעקב ויברך אותו. ויצווהו ויאמר לו, לא תיקח אישה מאתנן. So Isaac is calling Jacob, he's blessing him, and he says to him, he orders him, do not take a woman from Canaan. Verse 2, קום לך פדן ארם, go to Padan Aram, ביתה בתואל אבי אמך, to the house of Bethuel, the father of your mother, קח לך אישה מבנות לבן אחי אמך. Take a wife from the daughters of Lavan, your mother's brother. ואל שדי יברך אותך, and God will bless you, ויפרך and will multiply you, והיית לי כלמים, and you will become a commonwealth of nations. וייתן לך את ברכת אברהם. Listen carefully, verse 4, and he will give you the blessing of Abraham. לך וזרעך, איתך לרשתך את ארץ מגוריך, that you and your offsprings will inherit the land that you live in, the promised land that God gave to Abraham. So, if Isaac is giving Jacob the blessing to continue the way of Abraham and Isaac, he didn't give this blessing to Esau when he thought that this is Esau, and it was really Jacob. And he was happy that Jacob did it. And now the question is, what's in it for us? What is the whole story about? And in a nutshell, because I went into it in many times in the previous years, and I'll just make it very short, the code of this parasha, it's not gossip and it's not a soap opera. We are talking about the code of human behavior. In our story, according to the Zohar, Esau represents the evil inclination in each one of us. Jacob represents the good inclination in each one of us. Both of them, they're always fighting. Why? Because when we understand the creation, and God created, the Creator created all of us in His image, which means you cannot get free lunches. You cannot give somebody happiness and success. Happiness and success must be achieved, must be earned, must be created by the person himself. How could that be achieved if the world is a complete world, if the world is perfect? Okay? And therefore, God created the evil inclination, symbolized by the snake in the story of the Garden of Eden, symbolized by the Esau in this story. Now, Jacob is the incarnation of Adam, according to the Zohar, and Rivka is the incarnation of Eve. And now, because the evil inclination, the snake, stole the birthright and made Adam and Eve sin, now we have a world in which the birthright is by Esau. So when you look around and see in the public space in this world who controls the economy, the Esau's or the Jacobs, the evil inclination or the good inclination, honesty, loyalty, trust, faith, or ego, lust, greed, and so on. Everybody knows it is Esau who is in control since the sin of Adam, and that's what Isaac knew. Isaac knew we have two brothers, Esau and Jacob, and in order for humanity to continue the correction, the order has to be kept in line. Esau, the bad inclination. Jacob is the good inclination. And now, one thing that happens over here, that Jacob, as an incarnation of Adam, of the good inclination, and Rivka, the reincarnation of Eve, Now they represent the good inclination in each one of us. When we look at ourselves, who is stronger, the good inclination or the evil inclination? Egotism, selfishness, body needs and desires. It's very clear. Most of the time, everywhere, most of the time, politics, economy, relationships, governing bodies, whoever controls this world is Esau. And that is the situation for us humans to have that fair fight in order to regain our divinity, our connection to God, our connection to God's light. When is that we earn God's light? When we are outsmarting the dark side. If it won't be that hard, it doesn't worth it. It's not a fair game. So that's, by the way, the idea of Isaac. He never thought that Esau continues his ways. First of all, he let Esau marry the locals, okay? Second, he doesn't hold him for his actions. And second, he says, that's the way the world is. However, he keeps the blessing and the inheritance to Jacob. He sees Jacob as his heir, okay? And even later on, there's no fight between Jacob and Esau about inheriting the promised land. Why? We read it earlier with Abram, that Abram is asking God, how would I know? What's the guarantee that I will inherit this land? I know no free lunches. In order for me to achieve a connection to the promised land, I had to lose everything I had in Ur. I had to look for my direction, came all the way to Haran, came back to the promised land, to the land of Canaan. I know it was not easy for me, very hard. I know that the promised land cannot be given for free. Has, have, must be achieved, must be earned by hard toil. So, how would I know that my offspring will get it? And what's God's answer? You should know that your children will be slaves in a foreign land for 400 years. Only then they can inherit the land. Knowing that, Ishmael goes to Arabia, Esau goes to Edom, what is known today, Petra, the Red Rock, okay, in eastern to the Dead Sea. They don't want the inheritance of the land because they are not willing to pay the price. Only Abraham, later Isaac, and then Jacob, they were willing to pay the price because that's a definition of the good inclination. You know for sure that keeping the covenant means you have to pay the price. You have to put the effort. For nothing, you get only troubles, say the Zohar. You want to achieve something, you have to put the effort. If you put the effort, the Talmud says, if you put the effort and you will get, you get what you want, what you need. But if you don't put the effort, don't say you got what you wanted because you won't get it. You have to understand that because this is the basic idea that the whole parasha is standing about. It's the eternal fight. But that fight is coming to its end because that fight was for a limited time. Humanity started a journey of fighting for divinity, fighting for the connection to the to the infinite, to the connection to God. We started it 57, 86 years ago. That's why in the Hebrew calendar, we count how long we count this great uh, tournament between the evil inclination and the good inclination. Now, 57, 58, this is almost the end of the story. We were given 6,000 years to finish the story of that journey. What happened before? Uh, like Jewish scholars say, since humans were not aware of time, of the game, of the higher concept and reality, we are not counting the time that happened before this is starting. Therefore, in the Hebrew calendar, there's a year zero that basically is the 6 days of the creation, which is basically the whole story from the Big Bang all the way till we get ourselves in the midst of that ongoing story that we are coming nearing the end of it. So so because I expanded a lot about it in previous years, if you want to go much deeper into it and to understand why lentils and why red lentil soup, okay, and why Esau, that represents the evil inclination, is willing to sell his birthright to Jacob. Okay, this is the gay part of the game, and basically, you know what they say. The hint is there are no atheists in the foxholes, which means when a person could be so egocentric, so atheistic, so deep into his materialistic lies. Okay, and most of us are there most of the time. Some of us are there some of the time. Whoever says he's never there anytime, he'll be lying about other things too, because we're humans. And if you don't have the evil inclination in you, so what are you doing over here? You're not an angel, okay? And if you think that it's everybody else's problem and not you, uh, Houston, we have a problem. So let us try to understand that we have that fight, ongoing fight between the body consciousness, the lies, the deception. It's a world of lies and deception. And the basic morals of that story is that yes, the world is ruled by Esau. Okay? Don't look for justice. The world is ruled by materialism. Don't look for honesty. The world is ruled by deception. Don't look for the covenant. However, when there's no one who's a real, honest, loyal person, you should be the one because that's your opportunity. Because when you light a little candle in the middle of noontime in the summer, when the sun shines with all its might, your candle won't shine. But when you light your candle in a dark room, this is everything. That's why the world is so dark, to give each one of us the opportunity to shine. And otherwise, there's no free will. Now, if you go and you look around the media, okay, who is being honored? Who is being appreciated? The spiritual, honest, righteous people? Of course not. The people who are just like an epitome of the heirs of Esau. It's all about me. It's all about uh, cheating and pride and whatever. Okay, I think I made this point. Now, the question is, what is the deeper understanding of this parasha? Because there's a deeper layer. Okay, and I'm going right now to Parashat Toldot in the Zohar Perush Sulam, verse 139 in the Sulam commentary. Tachazi, come and see. Which means the Zohar is inviting us to sharing a vision with us. So we have to give our hearts and souls into that study because it's not just a logical idea that the Zohar is sharing with us. That's why it says, come and see. It's a sight. It's a vision. It's a prophecy that the Zohar is sharing with us. בשעתה דאמר יצחק לעשו, עצי השדה וצודה לי ציד. At that time that Isaac told Esau, go to the field and hunt for me, he's using for the word hunt, hunting. He said in Hebrew it is tzid. Tzid is tzadik yud dalid. But the Torah adds a letter hey to the word. You can't, when you read it, you can't hear that letter. So it's written tzadik yud daled hey. What is this additional hey doing over here? Behei, with additional hey. Vukma, and we already explained that before. Unefak Esav. So Esau went out for the hunting. Begin Yitbarach Mitzchak. Superficially, he wanted to hunt, to bring the food home, which means whatever he's hunting, a deer or something like this, and to cook it, roast it, whatever, and bring the meal to Isaac. So Isaac said, bring me the hunting, and I will bless you. And he said, and I will bless you in front of God. But why say in front of God? It's enough to say, and I will bless you. Since he said in front of God, when Isaac said to Esau, remember Esau represents the evil inclination, but the evil inclination always hides himself. It's like you never like meet a person and he says, I'm a cheat and I'm a liar and I'm full of ego, right? People always try to pretend, and you see that those liars, it's in with us. We blame others for for what we think that we did wrong. The moment Isaac said that, is the Azak the throne in the upper heavens started to shake. Amara, it was said, Umadi ipok chiv yaminu levatin, v'ishtar Yaakov behor. And it said, what would that do? Because if the snake, Esau is the snake, will get all of these blessings, how would Jacob be able to ever overcome the snake? Remember, the snake, the Garden of Eden had trees, the tree of life and tree of knowledge. You can't find trees like this in a nursery, correct? And not in the botanical gardens. We're talking about concepts, spiritual concepts, okay? There are no other animals, and the snake was talking, and he had legs. So we're not talking about the physical snake. We're talking about an entity in the spiritual dimension that is called the Garden of Eden. And Adam and Eve were basically the wholeness of all of humanity's souls without a physical body yet. Because the Talmud says Adam was tall up to the sky. That's not a physical entity. He was shining more than the sun. That's not a physical entity. He did not physically eat anything. He just meditated on every fruit and connected to the holiness within. That's not a physical being. That's not a physical existence that the Torah is talking about. So the snake incarnated into Esau. Who is Esau? That aspect of our personality that we have to overcome in order to earn divinity. And if you're not aware of that daily fight, you're not part of the game yet. The game had not started for you yet. Okay? If you think that all what's wrong is by the government, oh yes, it is a lot with the government, a lot of ego in the government. It's the rich people, yes. Most of them are full of ego and so on. But the story is not about that. The story is that if you can't win your inner battle, if you cannot take responsibility for your inner battle, how are you going to win the battle against the other guys, the real bad ones, if you're part of them? Because blaming is part of Esau. Blaming is part of the snake. Blaming is the last, is just the opposite of saying, I am a child of Adam and I take responsibility for the sin, and therefore I take responsibility for what I think, what I feel, and I take responsibility for my happiness and for my victories. And nobody else is responsible for that. I'm not waiting for anybody to do that for me. When Jacob is cheating Esau, is teaching us that being righteous does not mean being so gullible, so straight. No, being righteous means you have to outsmart your evil inclination. You have to outsmart the evil inclination of your children, your spouse, your co-workers, everybody around, because you're aware that who is in control is the evil inclination. You want to achieve something. You have to be smarter than that. It is so easy to say, I'm honest, they are not. I'm righteous, they are not. I'm right, they are not. If you're right, you're dead right. That's ego. This is a selfish ego, taking away, removing any responsibility. If you see something wrong, don't try to find whose mistake it is. Do what's possible to fix it so you're correct. That's the name of the game. If you don't understand that, that's hypocrisy. And most people are so hypocrite, they don't even aware that they're hypocrite. They're not even aware they're totally under the control of Esau. Because when you're right, you're dead right. We're not here to be right. We have to be the light. We're here to shine. And sometimes, in order to make things happen, you have to be smarter than those people that are run by the snake, the evil inclination, by Esau. So Rabbi Ashla continues and he's saying, וכדי להבין דברים אלו צריכים לבאר תוכן המאמר כולו. In order to understand that deeply, we have to explain the whole issue. What's going on over here? ועברו בדרך היקף בקיצור. So Rabbi Ashlag is offering us like a short, relatively short explanation for what the story is about. So he's asking, what is the story about the clothes? That it says that Rivka, she dressed Jacob with the clothes of Esau. Okay? And the Midrash is saying, which means the Torah is not just what's written, is also the oral law. They came back on Mount Sinai, and the oral law is all about the stuff that is in between the lines of the written text. And it is said that those special clothes, magical clothes of Esau, he got them after he murdered Nimrod. Okay? And those were the holy clothes that Adam and Eve got after the sin. Okay? They first dressed up by fig leaves, and then God gave them special magical clothes. So what is that story about the clothes? And when Esau wore them, they were not so cooperating. But when Jacob wore them, he came with them into the room with Isaac, and Isaac said, "Oh, that smells like the Garden of Eden." What is this? What the whole story is about? That's what Rabbi Isaac is saying. Why the clothes are mentioned over here? Why saying hunting Tzadik Yud Dalid Hey when it should be Tzadik Yud Dalid? Why an extra Hey? And what's the whole thing about the blessings? Why is it so important? והנה סוד הלבושים. When you learn about the secret of levushim, garments, clothes, covers, it's already explained in other textbooks of Rabbi Ashlag. And we understand that levush is, in a simple language, a garment, but it's another form of the vessel. Okay? You can have, we have five levels of emanation. It's called shenigle. Shoresh, neshama, guf, levush, heichal. Initials, shenigle. Shin is shoresh, the root, which is the eternal, infinite light. Neshama is the soul, which is the vessel and also the garment of the light, the infinite light, because the infinite light cannot be revealed unless there is a vessel to enfold it. In Hebrew, lehalbish, garment, clothes, it's the same, it's levush. Now, the soul is a garment relatively to the light. The soul, in order for the soul to be revealed, the soul needs a body, okay? The body is the garment relatively to the soul. Then you have the physical garments, the physical clothes. The human being, in order to be revealed in front of his friends, has to wear garments so he can be revealed in front of others. Okay? Because if you go out naked to the street, nobody can relate to you. Nobody can talk to you. You have to be covered. Okay, same thing when you have ideas. You have to dress them up with the right wordings so others can understand what you're saying. And then a human being with his garments need his house, home, to be the vessel that reveals who's the person. How do you know how great is the king? You look at how great is the palace, correct? So, and how great is the king of the universe? So you need to build a temple. Heichal, a shrine, okay? Heichal is also the letters for Hakli, the vessel. So, after the Tzimtzum, after after the singularity, the infinite point that the light and the vessel, the creator and the creation were all one. However, it was all perfect to one point without any physical dimensions. That's the only way you can describe in a human, for human logic, the infinite. Because the Kabbalists say if it's bigger than a point, it's not infinite anymore. Why? Because there are 2 points. So there's a boundary, it's not infinite anymore. Think about it. You have to a lot of people need to contemplate about it. It takes a while to understand it. And that's why the Zohar says the universe starts from one point, which is the infinite. Science follows less than 100 years ago and realized that the whole universe starts from that single point. Okay? Now, why it didn't stay at that point? Why it has to explode and create physical matter? Because we need garments. We need manifestation in order to have the freedom of will. So we can overcome, so we can create our own vessels for the infinite light. Only when the world is imperfect, we can create the perfection, complete the perfection maybe, and then, as it is known, the one who completes the perfection, the work is being named after him. That's a great Talmudic idea, which means when the person who finished the job, he's the one to cut the strip in the inauguration ceremony. So now he's going to very detailed explanation, and I won't go into it. However, so when we're talking about the garments, we're talking about the vessels that can hold the light of the Creator. A vessel that is capable of holding the light, that's called a blessing. Okay? Holding the light of the Creator, if you study Kabbalah, that's not a problem. Right? If there's a will, there's a way. You want something strong enough, somehow you get it. That's not the problem. The question is, are you able to keep it? Would it stay? Why? Because after the tzimtzum, after the contraction, after the vessel stopped receiving the light, blocked the light, which created the whole cascade that finally created the Big Bang and physical reality and physical bodies and the world of flies and free will. Okay? All of that in this world, a vessel that can hold the light, which is a real blessing. If you hold the light, let's say if you're being blessed to be rich and you're a billionaire for 5 minutes, is this called a blessing? No, it's not. What about 10 minutes? What about 10 hours? 10 whole days? That's not a blessing. In order for the blessing to be a blessing, that should be eternal. And after the story started to unfold, after the contraction, that tzimtzum, the tzimtzum controls every aspect of reality. And what does that mean? It means that wanting something, craving for something, is important and necessary, but it's not enough. If you don't have a will, if you don't have a strong will, there's no way you're going to achieve greatness. This is necessary, but it's not enough. Why? Because the tzimtzum forbids desire to receive for oneself alone. Because desire, selfish desire, self-centered desire, desire that is 100% I want, I crave, I desire, the moment this desire appears, the tzimtzum is awakened and it's always high and by, which means the victory of the wicked is always temporary. They can achieve greatness, but it's short-lived. You can have, when you're selfish, and all of us find ourselves in selfish eruption, the pleasure is short-lived. Why is it? When there was a tzimtzum, this tzimtzum controls every aspect of the creation. Every time you want to receive, you want to achieve, you have to crave for it. You have to really authentically want it. Okay, but if it's selfish, self-centered, it will be high. The light never says no. So there will be a fulfillment. There will be a sense of achievement, but it will last very shortly, 10 minutes, half an hour, maybe a few hours, maybe even few days and longer. You know what? Externally, it can last even longer than that, but not internally. Internally, how do you know somebody is not successful? We already explained in the beginner's course. Very simple. You cannot give what you don't have. Which means when you're full of real happiness, elation, enlightenment, completion, complete achievement. You're happy. You're incapable of inflicting pain on others. You can't do that when you're really happy. You simply see everyone in the light of your happiness. Even people you can't stand usually, you can tolerate. That's how you know you're really happy and successful. So, how many real happy people do we know? How many real happy people do you know? How do you know that they are happy? And how do you know they're happy? They're simply nice, unconditionally towards other people because that's what we do when we're really happy. How many people we know that are happy most of the time? I won't say all the time. How many each one of us know? Not too many. Why? Because most of us don't understand and don't commit to that idea. You want to achieve greatness, you have to create great giving. Because the giving, the energy being generated when we give, when we share, when we overcome our own selfishness and we turn it around into sharing and love and care, it creates what is called it's the light of chasadim, the light of giving. That becomes the vessel that can hold, contain, envelope, be the vessel, the garment for revealing the light eternally. That's why it says charity stays forever. The only thing that stays forever is what you really do for others. That power that you generate is the vessel for the blessings. That's why levush, heichal, the garments, and the shrine, which are basically those vessels we generate when we're kind, when it's not that easy to be kind, when we are hospitable, when it's not so easy to be hospitable, when we care, when it's not so easy to care. That is the vessel that is eternal. These vessels, after you generate them, they will always stay with your soul eternally. What do I mean eternally? Eternally, which means even after we pass on to the next life. These vessels, those garments, are eternal. They stay forever. Now, the question is, the Zohar is saying, who who does the harvest of all those acts of kindness and loving and sharing and caring and generosity that humans generate along the years? And that's why Rabbi Asher continues. What is the secret of the blessing? ותדע שהוא נתינת כוח ושליטה לגמר תיקון. And you should know those blessings of Isaac were basically giving the power, the control, all the way till the completion of the tikkun process of all of humanity. This is the completion of the tzimtzum. Again, to remind, what is the tzimtzum? The vessel that we know was generated, created by God. I want. Okay? That's I desire, I crave, I need, I must have. That was the only creation that God created. All the rest is not, it's not a creation because all the pleasure, all the achievements, they are the light. The light was there eternally before the creation. Okay? That's not the creation. The creation is the lack, the need, the desire to receive all of that. This is the creation. Now, but this vessel cannot exist. Not right now, because every time it awakens as a we experience it as a selfish desire to receive. The Tzimtzum awakens and shuts it down. It's, I don't know if you had this experience. There is a short circuit. The house, no electricity, no light. So you go to the control box of the and you try to switch it on. And you switch it on, and then it collapses again. Switch it on, it collapses again. That's exactly what we call the Tzimtzum. Okay? Every time you try to receive the power infinitely without any just pure desire to receive, you turn it on, and it's the Tzimtzum, short circuits on the spot. Okay? In order to prevent that from happening, in order to give humanity a road for correction, there are two journeys. One is a journey of Jacob, the journey of the good inclination, the journey that says, if I want my life to be successful, I have to commit to make other people happy. I have to commit to the values of honesty, integrity, service, emulating God's features. He is merciful, I'm merciful. He's loving, I'm loving. He's forgiving, I'm forgiving. When I do that, against my selfish desire, I generate the light of chasadim. I generate the levushim, the garments, that they stay forever. We're not here to make a lot of money, although there's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. We're not here to build families, although there's nothing wrong in building families. On the contrary, when you have a lot of money, you can do a lot of great things. You can invest it. Angel investors, you can invest it in companies that can do good to the world. You can open factories and companies in places that people need work. You can do a lot of good stuff with a lot of money, with a lot of power, with a lot of wisdom. You can do so much good and greatness and make money with that. No problem. The question is, what is your intention? What is your consciousness? Because when the consciousness is connected to the covenant, what I'm doing here is I find the way to be happy by helping others. This is the process of tikkun of Jacob. But the other venue, the other frequency that is available for all human beings in order to have free will is Esau's way. And what is Esau's way? This is being loyal to the original vessel, saying, I want, I desire, okay? I'm going to get it no matter what, and who cares about the consequences? As long as I get what I want, I get fulfilled. If I get fulfilled, this is holy. My individualistic desire is holy. My own self-determined happiness is holy. And let the whole world go to wherever. I don't care about others. I have to care about myself and myself alone. This is Esau. What's the problem with that? This is activating the original vessel. However, the only way to correct the original vessel is to overcome that initiate desire. This initial desire, that's original desire. This desire must be covered up. It's not polite in many cultures. Somebody offers you food. Say, oh, I'm so hungry, give it to me. In many cultures, being polite is thank you, I'm okay. No, no, please. You have to make it look like you're doing a favor to your host. You don't really need. Why? The original desire to receive must be always hidden. It's a shame to expose your desires in public in many cultures. Why? Because it belongs to Esau's way, which is I want, I desire, that's the right thing. You know what? This is the truth. But we're not in the world of truth. We're in the world of garments. The only way you can receive the fulfillment for your desires, which is the agenda, is by fulfilling other people's desires, by being there for others, by being basically loyal to the covenant. Honesty, integrity, it's not easy, but that self-control, self-discipline is generating all the chasadim, the garments that can hold the blessings eternally. And what does the Zohar say? What the Rabbi Ashlag is saying here? So, וצריך שתדע, you should know, שהזיווג הגדול המביא את גמר התיקון, that the big union, that is the union that creates the Messianic age, the age of world peace and harmony, okay? That is bringing the correction for, like the complete correction for all of humanity, okay? הוא כולל בתוכו לכל הזיווגים והקומות שיצאו בזו אחר זו, בכל משך שיטה אלפי שנים. During the 6,000 years of Tikkun, every time a human being overcomes his selfishness, overcome his urge to steal, to kill, to murder, to step on, every time we, by our loyalty to the Creator, we stay honest and we achieve greatness, although it is taking the hardest way, the short way, but the long way, which is the short way. Every time we do that, we create another garment. This garment stays forever, not just for oneself, but it is added to the effort of all of humanity. Whenever we have a moment that we're being seduced, a moment that we have the choice, follow Esau, I want to be right, I want to show them, I don't care the consequences, somebody has to speak out and so on and so forth. I need that food, I need that money, I'll take it, they're rich enough, or I don't care about it. Every time we go against the values of the Torah and we follow our urges, it's easy because this is Esau. We could be proud of it because it's Esau. But the Tzimtzum awakens and shuts that revelation down. It's like it's the easy way, which is the hardest way. However, every time we overcome it and we choose the harder way, the honest way, but the way that is eternal victory. Why eternal? Because that victory becomes a small garment that is added up to the mutual teamwork of all of human souls. When all of human souls acquire enough garments, like the critical mass is met, that's called Hazivug Agadol, the great mating between the heaven and the earth, God and his creation. שערכם על ערך הזיווג הזה, the value of that union, הוא ממש is exactly, really, כערך הפרטים על הסכום הכללי שלהם. It's the sum of all those great moments of greatness of each human being that added one more correction, one more act of kindness, humility, sharing, authenticity, honesty against the odds. These garments add up. Many, it's like pixels of the picture. Every human being is here to add few more pixels till they all add up and the picture is finally complete. We won't see it before the last pixels add up, before the last unions, the last connections are being achieved. הנה כלל של כל המעשים והאיסורים, they all sum of all the actions and all the suffering, which means all the suffering of people that suffered and they didn't care about it because they were focused on the final goal, honesty, integrity as a mean to connect to godliness. I want to be happy, but not in a selfish, uh, evil, illegal way. So I'll work for it. And I'm willing to pay the price. So all this שהיו בעולם הזה, בזה אחר זה. So all of those actions of people who committed to honesty and loyalty to God and authenticity and the covenant. This is when they add up in this physical world only, because there's free will only in the physical world. All along the generations for 6,000 years, which we are coming to the completion of that era. And then it says, what it says, and God will give you from the dew of the heavens, which is the level of Zeranpin. Zeranpin is the upper world, the spiritual world. And then umishmanei haaretz, and the oils of the earth. This is the vessel. So in that blessing, Isaac is blessing Jacob. He thought this is Esau. שיזכה לכל הקומות של זיווגי איזון. He blessed him that all those actions of every human being will add up to the way of Esau. Now, how would Isaac think that Esau could do that? Because Esau could have been a righteous person. He chose not to, but he could have been. Now, that makes it a little bit complicated. So why did Jacob had to steal it? Look, when we look at the two, Esau and Jacob, Esau is the hunter, Esau is the ruler, Esau is the power, Esau is assertivity, Esau is control, Esau is charisma. It doesn't mean that that is wrong. But Esau did not sanctify those characters. He used them for ego. Jacob, since that blessing, must steal that Esau-ness, which means, how could you be a righteous human being? How could you be an honest, spiritual human being and still have a charisma that people will follow you, like the millions that follows Genghis Khan when he massacred huge part of the world, destroyed so much. Genghis Khan, the Nazis, Rome, that was Esau. Enslaving, killing, stealing, that was Esau. Jacob was being righteous, being positive, being optimistic, being, being able to resist, to be resilient. But without that charisma and power, only, so that's why that will happen when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes, he will have the righteousness of Jacob, the charisma, the power, the military might, the force of Esau. Therefore, it is said that Jacob took those blessings for the end of days. Now, when we are approaching the end of days, we have to learn, and we can see that coming about in the last few centuries, when people are starting to ask themselves, can we be honest, righteous, positive, optimistic, good, and be charismatic, rich, powerful, and so on? This is the blessings that we are talking about right now. Don't be ashamed of having success. Don't be ashamed of learning how to be in control. Remember, that has to be only on one condition. If you want to be happy, has to be when you make other people's happy. Then you add up to the general tikkun. That power Esau was supposed to have, Jacob had to steal it from him because he has no right to have it. Because what happened to Genghis Khan? What happens to the Nazis, the Soviets? It was using power, might, ego, mind control, right? For what? Destroying, subjugating, enslaving, making people's lives miserable, stepping on people's rights for happiness. That's the uncorrected Esau. But we are coming to the days that all the corrections of all nations of the world, it's all starting to come and add up till the final victory. When we do have the ability to have positive PR of honesty and strength, might and loving. And then the whole world will see where the lies lie, and where the might is the real in the honesty and the goodness. Each one of us has a part of it. That's called Tikkun Olam. And it starts with our own individual responsibility. Thank you for that. Good luck for all of us. This is the source of the real blessings that stay forever. Shavua Tov.